we cannot make a miracle, but we can try together to see how we can bring the intersection of these three. The science of the mind has been studying several aspects of the mind, and Spiritism studying the spirit. As Kardec defined it, Spiritism is a science that has the spirit as its object of study, ourselves. And why is it important for us to highlight that? Because many people want material science to explain things that pertain to the science of Spiritism. And it's not going to happen because we have different objects of study. We may intersect, but we're not going to study the same. Kardec very wisely brought to us that the science that we study as Spiritists has the goal to study the origin of ourselves as spirits, our nature, our destiny, and the interaction between us spirits and the corporeal realm. And there we intersect with material science, but there will be many things that solely and only pertain to Spiritism, because our material science does not have the same object of study that we do. It's important for us to contextualize it, not to be frustrated or bumping heads endlessly. We are here to study ourselves as spirits, who we are, where we've come from, and what is going to happen to us next. Naturally, we learn that there are laws of life. And that's why I said, a best way to summarize it all is to point to all of us a reference, the book Thought and Life by Emmanuel. A book that is not very much read in our Spiritist movement, but we would say should be taken as foundational as well. We would say any science has a foundation, and Spiritism as a science has Kardec as its foundational literature, the pillars. And then we have, of course, Leon Denis at this foundation as well, and then the whole literature that was brought by the phenomenal medium Chico Xavier. And then everything else is an extension, a complement. But we're talking about the foundation. In this book, which was brought to us in the same year of the book Evolution into Worlds, 1958, Chico Xavier brings to us in 30 chapters, it's a thin book, but it has 30 chapters, encompassing a summary of the directives. These are the very words of Emmanuel, the spirit author of this book. The directives that are given to the spirits who are in the schools of regeneration in the spiritual realm. We are spirits, but we are incarnated. For those who are discarnated are here, it's another story in a way. But for us who are here, it's a book for us to know, a manual. How can I succeed in this reincarnation? Because Emmanuel, in his life as the Senator Publius Lentulus, as we read in 2,000 years ago, he was a great senator, a good politician. For the Roman Empire, he was the best, or one of the best. But he says in that book, I failed. I wasted my reincarnation, though people considered him to be one of the best senators of the time. So if the world applauds us, not necessarily we're doing right. And that is the beginning of how we calibrate our mental health. Because many of us are not doing well at evaluating ourselves because we're depending on people to applaud us. Self-esteem. No wonder Kardec in the Spirit's book asked the spirits, what can we do to progress steadily and avoid mistakes? The answer, self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is not what people think of you, because they don't know you. It's what you know about yourself. We don't know much of ourselves. We have blind spots. There are people who look at you and they see you from previous lives. It happens to many parents. When they look at their children and they are unable to see the new that is being built and contribute to the new. They identify vibratorily the mismatch and they continue feeling that spirit from a previous life and reinforcing the same old person instead of facilitating the sprouting of the new. So for us, where does mental health begin? It begins where the spirits point out to us in the Spirit's book. Self-knowledge. In another question of the Spirit's book, Kardec asked the questions that we have in ourselves. In 1,019 questions and answers in the Spirit's book, he has questions that we do too. To date, it's not an outdated book. Kardec then asks, if we don't remember who we've been, how can I actually assess who I am? The answer of the Spirit is fascinating. Observe your instinctive tendencies. What are these instinctive tendencies? The things that come out automatically. You know, when you say, oh my gosh, I don't know why I always do this, why I always say that. Log and call for help. For people who can help us recalibrate ourselves. But you may say, just studying us, and many people are like, oh, but I don't want to study myself because I don't want to be more sad. Oh, Vanessa, it's already too much. I agree with you. But let's go back. Bartholomew, one of the disciples of Jesus, barely spoken about, thanks to Humberto de Campos, or Brother X. Yesterday was his birthday, and we sent a prayer because he rescues for us encounters with Jesus that immortalize for us solutions for humanity's issues. Bartholomew had those issues like us. My life is a confusion, Master. Can you believe my father doesn't understand me? My brothers, they always put me down and bully me. My colleagues at work, they are terrible to me. And the only person who understood me simply died, my mom. What you're saying makes sense to me, he said to Jesus. But there is a gap I can't overcome. And it doesn't console me yet. What is missing? It's beautiful to read the description. Our daughter is 6 years old, and I've seen things that I'm like shocked. We lack regulation. There's a lot of regulations when we start first grade. Higher education is doing so well in so many ways, but for school infant care, we don't even know what to expect and how to train. And we're allowing many things that are astounding, not only the educators, but mostly the pediatricians. Talking to a pediatrician the other day, he said, it's just getting worse, Vanessa. And I said, in all of your 30 years of practice, what's going wrong? He said, parents. They don't like the word discipline. And I agree. Because in our Spiritist Center, the Spiritist out of Virginia, when we implemented a new program, I Love Rules, some parents were afraid that we're going to repress their children. They said, why don't you create a reward system? Because it doesn't happen in life. Either you do what is right or what is wrong is going to be punished. We're not going to punish, but we're showing consequences. Action and reaction. That's how the Creator creates us. We boost the prefrontal cortex. And now we go back to mental health. Because when we see how the brain is built, at our level as humans, we have the development of cortical areas that are defining in decision making at the prefrontal cortex level. Daniel Siegel, one of the pioneers in the studies of emotions, and especially in children, he gives a beautiful model that we can portray just by using our hand. As if this is our brain, the spinal cord, the nose is here. Inside, in the midbrain down, we have the main modulation of our emotions related to survival, we'll say this way. At the top of it all, we have the cortical areas, and especially here at the level of the forehead, the prefrontal cortex. That's where lies the management of the reinvention of ourselves. How, you may be asking, but Vanessa, how does that happen? And it has everything to do with the Spiritist science. In the book, Among Brothers of the Other Lands, several spirits wrote messages, but there is one chapter that Humberto de Campos describes, a conversation among spirits from the beyond, while Chico Xavier and Baldo Vieira were traveling throughout the United States and some parts of Europe. And they say Spiritism is the light of discernment. Discernment comes with the use of these very cortical areas. Animals cannot do it. We need continuing thought, because animals level have fragmented one. So we are capable of reinventing ourselves, of using these cortical areas to give a new meaning to our lives. Oh my gosh. Everything merges together. Viktor Frankl was right. Leaving the concentration camps and identifying that when people learn how to give a new meaning to their issues in life, they can reinvent themselves and have a better quality of life. There was a study by scientists and neuroscientists and computational scientists that revealed to us firsthand that our problem is not at the decision-making level. Our problem is before that. It happens in the encoding of it all. What does it mean? It means that they say there is an error when we're encoding the stimuli that will be feeding ourselves so we can make a decision. Aha. Then Jesus comes and gives a new meaning. Forgive. Why? Because we are all children of God. From now to immortality, you'll be best friends. No, we won't. Oh, yes, we are. The sooner you do it, the better it is. No, but I don't want to work with this person. One day you will. No, I won't. You will. If we learn how to do it now, better for us. Because we don't know if tomorrow is going to be that easy. How many of us would like 10,000 things we cannot do because of distance, because of resources? Maybe when we had them at hand, we misused them or took for granted. And now they are right here. Mindfulness. Giving value to everything that is happening now. First and foremost, what's happening here to us. That's why André Luiz, in the book Evolution in Two Worlds, begins chapter 1 by saying, right now we are co-creators at minor level, and our duty is to master the management of our spiritual body and consequently the physical body, to the point one day we'll do what Jesus having a flu or cold. Never, right, Virginia? Why not? Because that level, he already knew it. He already knew how to co-create life, co-creator at a major level, which is building planets, galaxies. We cannot even imagine because we can barely manage the cells of our bodies. But this is our task. Think about it. When I look at myself in the mirror, who am I seeing? Not necessarily me, but the only asset I am responsible for and nobody else, the physical body. And the scientists, from Louise Hay to others, they say we have a hard time looking at ourselves in the mirror. Many people, they don't even brush their hair looking at the mirror. They are drinking coffee, dressing up, and combing their hair, and you see many people driving in the morning and quickly, please, putting the makeup on, not even that. But if we are co-creators at minor level and we don't love this asset, which Mentor Druso in the book Action and Reaction by André Luiz, through Chico Xavier, says to us, the physical body is the award that we receive when we reincarnate. So what are we supposed to do? How can we calibrate ourselves? First, accept the title, Child of God. Do we accept it? What does it mean to be a child of God? What does it mean to be a child of God? It means that I was created by a superior intelligence, supreme intelligence, that loves me unconditionally and knows why I exist. I don't know, but God knows. It must be a good reason. How often we look at a flower, look at this beautiful flowers, the arrangements, the day we look at ourselves with the same amazement, adoring it as we do these flowers, we'll have a better quality of mental health. Accepting the fact that we are heirs of the Creator, meaning the universe is abundant and it belongs to us too. What does that mean? It means that God is entrusting us with all the resources that we need. We don't lack anything. That poverty mentality disappears. That lack mentality disappears to the point that Emmanuel wrote the book, Money. Through Chico Xavier. He said in the preface, money also comes from God. I'm glad Emmanuel said that, because if I had said it, nobody would believe. But I believe what he said. Why? Because it's energy. Read the book. He shows to us how to get rid of this poverty mentality in which we feel like we're limited, we don't deserve much, we've done so much wrong in the past, I don't deserve to be happy. But when Kardec listens from the Spirit, and I say listen, quote unquote, because he was not the direct medium, but when he listens to the instructions to the mediums and shares with us in the Spirit's book, study your instinctive tendencies, he didn't say that to put us down. But when I see myself with the potential that I have conquered thus far and the much that is ahead of us, I renew my hope. Not that people will change, but that I can improve myself. But not that improvement thinking that I'm bad. You want to see how? Think of ourselves as a seed. When you look at the seed of an apple tree, do you look at the seed and say, oh, you don't grow? What's your problem? You're bad. Well, the seed is a seed. It's complete as a seed. When we plant it in the soil and nothing sprouts, we don't curse at it saying, hello, where are you? But that's what we do to us. I'm impatient. When you have the seed of patience in you, by denying it and not believing in it, we're not helping it grow. We're suffocating it. Then I see that from the seed to the tree, nothing lacks in any given stage. When I accept that in each step I am complete, that it's just a matter of time, effort, and repetition. As André Louis says in the book Evolution in Two Worlds, he says we're learning beings. We can learn anything. It's just a matter of effort and repetition. Effort, repetition. The distance between us and Jesus is effort and repetition. If we doubt it, we have to read all of it again. So much so that Emmanuel summarizes here the power of our minds in the first chapter, the mirror of the mind. He says, we, through our emotions, thoughts, we create, we co-create. You need to learn to tame this wild horse. And if you have ever tamed a wild horse, it takes time, effort, and repetition. But we need a system. Dr. Srini Pillai, a physician, neuroscientist. At Kardec Radio, we have almost 300 interviews that we've done in our Health and Spirituality series since 2011. You can listen to all of them through Kardec Radio. And Srini Pillai was one of the scientists. He talks a lot about fear. And as a neuroscientist in his papers published, he identified that we really need to aim consciously at the next step, visualize it, to build the neural connections and finally see the manifestation in our behavior. Of course, we're talking about building new synapses, probably new neurons that are going to be born, new neural connections, neural pathways that will be the venue through which the new behaviors will be manifesting. But that's what material science says, and Spiritism says, well, you can do it through the spirit, the mind. Andrea Luiz talks about the mental body. People say, but Vanessa, I've been praying. Nothing is happening. Of course, first, how you pray. In the book, Workers of the Life Eternal, Andrea Luiz talks about different prayers. If it's just a cry, oh God, please help me, and then I spend the day, I don't deserve. I'm bad, you see, people don't say hi, they don't talk to me, then we are defeating the purpose. But if I say a prayer of truth faith, like, God, I know that you love me, and I know that people that I encounter are just as important as I am. I know that we're together for something wonderful that you have prepared for us. Help me, please. Open myself up for these beautiful connections through my family, through my colleagues at work, the neighbors, the community. In that, I can train myself. In chapter 2, he says, you have will, the power of will, to work on it. No wonder our dear Emmanuel, in one of his books of inspirational messages, and I say this not to say it's only inspiration, because there is a lot more than inspiration, but in the book Our Daily Bread, he talks about the fact that we have our good will and our ill will. But if we use our will to do the good, miracles will happen. Miracles in the sense, as Kardec says in the book Genesis, they don't actually exist because we're not defeating the laws of God. We're not bending them, but we are actually calibrating ourselves with the divine harmony, and things will unfold more naturally. I don't need to make an effort in that regard. Just accept, have goodwill. Am I open in my heart to loving the people in my family? Or am I just reacting? Emotional struggles. Some of the greatest emotional struggles we have is really overcoming the emotional conflicts that show up when we feel guilty, or when we lack or we think we lack the capacity to forgive people in our lives, understand them. And then in chapter 10, Emmanuel gives us a very easy approach. he says, if you want to undo the handcuffs of evil, he says, seek the good, feel the good, visualize the good, mold the good with all the resources we have at hand. What is to seek the good? To seek the good requires effort, requires will. To find the good. The other day, somebody said, Vanessa, but I can't. My daughter, she's terrible. Okay, hold on. Is she 100% terrible? Or 99%? Because if there is a lot of good there that we're not observing, oh no, I know she can be great. Okay, so let's focus on that. Great at, okay, fill in the blank. She's great at this, great at that, great. Okay, focus on this. Now feel it, as Amanda is saying. Feel it. Visualize it. Now go. Go co-create this with her. If she was given to you as a daughter, you can do it. Because the hardest part you've done, gestating. And why do I say this? Between two people who do not get along well, merging in paraspiritual connections, you feel it more than anything else. If you've succeeded at that level, you can do it. The hardest part is past. Make an effort to seek the good. Like the other day, Mentor Joseph said, I said, Mentor Joseph, I have a hard time with X person. What do I do? He said, thank her. For what? Thank her for giving you a hard time. And what do you mean? I said, well, thank her for creating obstacles for you, because she's closing that door, you're opening other doors over there. Thank her that she doesn't accept you as you are, because then you can make more friends where they do. Thank her for being an antagonistic, because through that, you're opening new opportunities in your life. So thank her like we thank when we receive vaccines. She's vaccinating you for worse in the future. And I said, what do you mean worse? Something worse is going to happen. I said, no. Think of Jesus. What he had gone through when he was incarnated. He was antagonized. People misunderstood him. And that was big. You think that happened to him only once? He was a master on dealing with enemies. He didn't create enemies, but he knew how to deal with those who made themselves his enemies. In that life, he already knew how to deal with it. You're being trained like everybody else on the planet. You're being vaccinated. But it hurts. Yeah, vaccines hurt. Tell children. But we love vaccines because they protect us from worse. That is seeking the good. Dealing with our emotional struggles with a question. What can I learn from it? Dr. Viktor Frankl said that at the concentration camps, many who he saw surviving, they were very optimistic. And he saw the opposite regarding many who actually were killed. Said that the ones I observed, that those, you can watch his talks and interviews on YouTube, it's fascinating. He discovered the power of reframing our struggles. And that's what Jesus comes with the good news. He says, reframe your struggles. I may look at myself in the mirror and not like a certain feature, but why do I need this feature? We talk about bullying. There are people who spend their day just gossiping or teasing people for their shortcomings, physical, personality-wise, etc. And then we reincarnate. And we cannot stand looking at ourselves in the mirror with those features that we used to bully people about. And we can't look at ourselves in the mirror. But we need to reconcile and see past and love it. On the behind the scenes of it all, the reconciliation with ourselves as divine beings. But Vanessa, isn't that pride? No, it's self-love. Why? Kardec, again, in the Spirit's book, he gives us an analogy that is very therapeutic. Remember, Kardec was an educator. And when he brings the Spirit's teachings, he shares with us in a very educational manner. And he says, we are the masterpiece of God. When we are cursing ourselves, we are actually telling the Creator that he doesn't know what he is doing or what he's done. It's as if you are in an exhibit and then the painter is here, the painting is there, and I say, oh my gosh, that's a terrible painting. And the painter, it's like, are you serious? I'm the painter. Oh, I'm so sorry. When I look at myself in the mirror, and I say the mirror, not to say only the physical body, but to see ourselves. To see ourselves. If I don't learn to love and approve of this masterpiece, I'm telling God, I don't know what's crossing your mind when you're still sustaining my life. So he's giving us a tool. Do we accept the title of children of God and the implications of it? Being co-creators. That's a big deal. You know why? Because when you enroll yourself in a next course, you're not going to doubt your capacity. People are going to say, what? You're 80 and you're going back to the university? Yeah, why not? I'm a child of God. I have to learn everything. But you're done in this life. Well, God doesn't think so, because I'm still here. That's why Dr. Adão Nonato, in the city of São Paulo, as a wonderful spiritist and physician, he created a nursing home where he has a program to motivate the elderly people to start enrolling in courses or activities that they portray themselves working upon in the future reincarnations. Because many people think of retirement as sitting back and relax. For us Spiritists, it's not in our list anymore. Retirement. We don't aim at retiring. We aim at learning new things, doing new things, because there is no end. Like my grandmother, because I come from a Spiritist family since my great-grandfather. My grandmother, who is a model for me, but at 80, the people called her back to be the president of the Spiritist Center. And I talked to her on the phone, and she said, "But Vanessa, don't you think I'm a..." And she's a wonderful model. She's very positive, doing great. "But don't you think I'm already old?" I said, "Grandma, as far as I know, and you know, if God wants you here, you still have something to do. And if that's part of it, do it. They want you. They need you. You're needed. But I can't do the same things." Well, doing the things that you can. They don't want you to run in the Spiritist Center, to clean the Spiritist Center. They want you to be this peacemaker. Just be you. It's fascinating because she taught me much. I never expected that one day I would give it back to her and say, "Grandma, you're needed, not only for me, but for many. Do it. Just be your peacemaker. You are a peacemaker. Be it." So, there is no end for learning. There's no deadline. That's why Jesus said, "Bartholomew, hope." I can coach myself by looking at our model daily, guide and model, imitating Jesus. A model is to be emulated. A guide is to be followed. That story that people say, "But who am I? I'm not Jesus." You're not supposed to be Jesus, but you're supposed to be light as you are. Shine. That's why he said, "Let your light shine." But we're not allowing, and then we go depressed. We're blocking it. We're not allowing ourselves to recycle. People are talking about the planet and recycling, but first comes the recycling of our emotions. "Oh, but that person, I X'd them out." Sorry. Because the plan of God is that you will be friends from now to immortality. At some point, it will happen. You're just postponing it. Don't. But there is no way to talk. It's okay, but visualize yourselves in harmony. You don't need to go there and hug and be together, because that is not what best friends is all about. It's about supporting each other in our growth. So how do we deal with these emotional struggles? By reframing them, as Viktor Frankl said, as Jesus taught us. And that's why, again, in the book Action and Reaction, Mentor Druso explains to us that there are 3 types of pain. In that, we can gain power to reframe our sufferings. There is the famous pain, karmic one, expiatory one, they say, which is the one we feel, as they say, from the inside out. When we know there is a lot of guilt and shame behind it. I've done the suffering, and now I feel it. It's like a student that repeated a year. Usually, we can recognize this type of pain because it comes loaded with guilt and shame. And chapter 22 of this book is titled Guilt. Inevitably, we are going to stumble on it. And Emmanuel says, when we feel guilty, we project devastating energies through guilt and depression. Moreover, we often harbor a silent anger that we project our sorrow against ourselves into displeasure and dislike towards others. Guilt requires readjustment with true humility in order to attain quick settlement. There's much more than that. These are just teasers for us. Inevitably, we're going to stumble on it, but we need to deal with it, and he's giving a tool, the practice of humility. There's another chapter here that is titled Humility, from a different angle. I don't think it's the angle that we're used to. And he says, Mentor Druso, that expiation pain will be overcome as we reincarnate and redress those mistakes, those choices. But they can only be redressed if we reframe and change that encoding that will be allowing us to love what was not yet loved, beginning with ourselves, self-love. Then there is a second type of pain evolution. Pain evolution is like when we go to the gym and we practice a new exercise, different muscles, and it's sore. But that's a good one, huh? It's the sign that we're evolving. It's when people are like, oh, I'm reading, like Sonia said, reading Evolution into Worlds. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. That being evolution. In Evolution into Worlds can be overcome if you click at the YouTube of Cardiac Radio or the Facebook, right, Marco? Facebook page, Marco, Shane, Marty, and I. We teamed up at the beginning of this year to give an online course on Evolution into Worlds. It's there, chapter by chapter. Together, it's much easier. You're not alone anymore. Adapting evolution is much easier when we go to the gym. Cardiac Radio is the gym of the soul too. We're there and we share and we break it down with slides, talking, breaking down together, making it feel accessible. Also because the truth is, let's be fair, André Luiz in the preface of the book says, this book is not for scientists. He says it. And he says, if you think it is, this book's not for you. This book is for all those who are suffering and need consolation. Any of us here fit the profile? I do. Do you? Who doesn't need new hope? So that book is for us. So maybe we're struggling because we don't understand that yet. So let's go there and read it. But that being evolution is natural. And we need to feel it. It's when Deepak Chopra says, when I encounter myself in a new moment I've never experienced, it's strange. Don't run away to the old. That's why Jesus said, courage. Courage to do the new. To reinvent yourself. Because if we keep ourselves in the comfort zone, inertia, we're not going to progress. And Kardec asked, and published in the Spirit's book in the chapter Law of Progress, can we at any moment regress And the Spirit said, no, thank God we don't regress. But we may delay progress. That's a problem. Am I delaying my progress? And unfortunately, we have to share, when I delay my progress, I am creating a community effect, delaying the progress of many more. Read the book, Sex and Destiny. When I see Claudio in his slippery road, his best friend, who is not necessarily an obsessor in his life, just a companion of affinity, Moreta, he is comes in Thought and Life and tells us in a chapter titled Illnesses, he says, sickness is present mainly to purify the spirit, beginning in the cradle and following the person throughout their life. Of course, nowadays we talk about epigenetics, and we see the power of our new environment. And then even Dr. Herbert Benson at Harvard showing to us that if we practice relaxation breathing, we may change our gene activation or deactivation, our gene expression, and avoid, even prevent, it's preventive medicine. Avoid the escalating of unnecessary illnesses, practicing relaxation breathing, tolerance, etc. So, mediumship then comes in this story, I would say, as a tool from an immortal spirit reality, as a tool to express this light that we are from God. When we talk about mediumship as the medium being the instrument, I can't help it but to give a reference for our study, the book Medium's Harvest, Seara dos Médiuns by Emmanuel, where he says in the first chapter, mediums are trees, and we need to be fruitful. Being a medium is being a co-creator, is allowing ourselves to be immortal spirits, though connected to the physical body, but being fully aware that we're much more than the physical body is. And as Kardec says in the Medium's Book, Chapter 1, at some point, at some level, we're all mediums because we may feel the influence of other minds. To wrap up, talking about feeling, we have to go back to our guided model. When Nicodemus, Jesus, Master, I recognize you're the Master, and I've been reading all the scriptures that talks about the kingdom of God, and yet I don't find it. What am I missing? And the answer is our homework. 2,000-year homework, huh? Because he says, Nicodemus, you forgot that it's not enough to know. Forgot to feel it. That's our homework, to feel it. Any question? Marcio is saying, any question? Ask Jesus.
Vanessa, first of all, thank you very much. It's a truly blessing, I believe I can say on behalf of most of us to have heard your talk, and also Marco, the other speakers. It's been great. It's been very enlightening. So from the deep of my heart, I truly, genuinely appreciate it. All the message that you're sharing with us, very encouraging. I'd like to ask a question regarding, you talked a lot about abundance and self-confidence, self-love. So from your perspective, how can we differentiate it in ourselves, our ego versus our self-confidence, self-love? So what kind of things can we look at ourselves and realize if it's being driven by our ego versus if it's truly self-love and lack of humility?
Thank you for asking, Daniel. Thank you for your loving words, too. So, when you're saying this, it reminds me of when Kardec asked the spirits, what is a spirit? And the spirits are funny because they say, it's hard to say in your words, but we would say it's a flame, like a divine flame. would say if we visualize ourselves as divine flames. Can you imagine? Visualize yourself as a divine flame. What is it? It's beyond the body. But I'm divine flame. I'm radiating, but vibratory responsibility. What am I radiating? That's the question. Because as divine flames, my essence is clean. I just need to adjust my output. But not for the other ones to see. For myself. I can't put a face, use masks, as psychologists say. Like, using masks is very conflicting. Because then, oh, I know you're not going to love me, so I'm going to speak very sweetly and kind. No. We may be kind like Jesus and firm at the same time. He knew how to do it. We're learning it. And be sincere. There were times that Jesus was approached, asked questions, he didn't answer. Read the book, No Roteiro de Jesus. It's translated into English, not published yet, but if you go to Kardec Radio, 40 Days with a Master, the whole series is about each chapter and the series that we share with you. There were times he didn't answer because he was being sincere, though kind, not to answer because the answer would probably be too much. So if we visualize ourselves as divine flames, we'll treat ourselves more kindly and be more responsible, I would say, more conscientious in our output. We would say nowadays we're learning as an environment, as a planet, when we talk about ecology, about being responsible with the planet. But are we responsible vibratorily? And creating that consciousness of our vibratory responsibility will be very empowering. I will know my essence and let it shine, because if I don't shine, the ones who depend on me will be in the same darkness. My darkness may affect them, the shadows. And that's when psychology talks about projections and shadows, etc. But to cut it short, I think when we visualize ourselves as divine flames, as the spirits say, we'll be more conscientious in how I am either polluting or contributing with my interactions and the environment in my life. I hope, Daniel, this is the beginning of our reflection.
Just a comment, I think, on trying to realize, is this ego or is this yourself, your higher self? It's self-knowledge too. And remembering that God's laws are in our conscience. Whatever we're acting, I guess our conscience will tell us, especially if we know ourselves. And how to know ourselves, we're going to talk tomorrow.
Thank you again for bringing your light. I have so much gratitude in my heart right now, just listening to what both of you shared so far. Here in Toronto, I think most of practitioners in integrative medicine will relate with me on that one. We have a large amount of teens that are experiencing mental health. And what the most difficult as a practitioner is that how we help the teens is by helping the parents. Because the parents are the one trying to figure out how to be there for their for their teens and help them go through the struggles. There are many causes of mental illness, and we think of mental illness sometimes just as, bipolar, borderline personality, or anxiety, but it's also insomnia, low self-esteem, insecurity. And my question in regards to that is, we relate a lot to our kids, and what we experience in ourselves, that pain, that struggle, the lack of acceptance to see our child suffering, what we experience is actually our own reframing of our struggles. And how can we not pass that energy or share that energy with our teens when it's too much for us to carry, you see? And we try to understand, now this is happening for a reason. We understand that this whole development of the frontal lobe, all the informations that some of us still carry now from when we were 5 years old, because some of those cells did not progress to maybe a different level. And how can we, as parents, I'm talking on behalf of parents who have gone through a lot of issues in mental health, not having the proper help from the medical system in a way of helping with the main focus, which is this transition to this new realm of perfection, right? So how can we still be strong and faithful and have hope and understanding of Jesus' teaching, of the healing of oneself, of the acknowledgement of the divine? How can we still go through this without feeling the physical struggle? How it becomes physiological to us parents? I'm not sure if I was very clear with my question, but...
Sure.
Yes?
Yes, thank you. First of all, I'd like to say that there are studies showing to us that this physiological synchronicity happens even at the dental office or in a psychotherapeutic office. There are papers showing to us the physiological correlation, showing to us that we don't even need the physical touch to be in synchronicity in physiological measurements. So it's a real thing that there's somebody suffering and I may feel it. Plus, we have mirror neurons, we are beings that were built to be empathetic, not pathetic, empathetic, and we are blossoming in our empathy. But as you're saying, I'd like to say, first it's natural, it's about emotional shielding, and it requires training, which we don't have. In our humanity, we are emotionally illiterate. I would say as when we were living at caveman time. Few went to the caveman's cave and said, "Hello, sir, can I take your child to school so they can learn things and read and write? They're going to live much better." First, he wouldn't understand us. And second, he would say, "You're crazy, what are you talking about? You're wasting my time because I have to hunt. And my children have to come with me because there's no other way." And that's what happens to people nowadays when we talk about emotional coaching or emotional awareness. People are like, "What? I know what I feel. I can control it," until the next thing happens and they learn they are illiterate. Their levels of emotional intelligence are very low because we need to coach ourselves like we coach our intellectual capacity. So parents need training. Chico Xavier used to say, we need courses for parents. If I have the whole training to be a physician, to be a psychologist, to be a pharmacist, the most important mission is to be a parent. And yet, we don't prepare ourselves. When we are pregnant, we go to the hospital, they talk about breastfeeding, how to change a diaper. That's a beginning. But it's like fetal level of any training, because that's piece of cake compared to when you can't stand it anymore, you want to run away, but you can't, you have to be there. What do? Nobody tells you what to do. There's no training. There's no preparation. So we would say, since we are marching toward the unfoldment of many advancements on Earth, we would say one of them that is a frontier, at the frontier of humanity's advancements, is to give greater support to parents. And that's why we have created years ago, in 2015, a website, which is an effort that exists already, Spiritist Support for Parents, Spiritist Parenting, and we have a Facebook page too. Still modest, but we have been doing our best, and people are teaming up, and we are going to release, with the efforts of the Spirit Side of Virginia, an app that is called Spiritist Parenting, where we're going to share resources for parents of all age groups to give parents more resources to deal with their mission, to prepare better, and to know how to reset when guilt comes, shame, sorrow, etc. So we are marching towards it, empowering parents, saying, I would say to all parents, if God entrusted this child to you, God believes in you. Don't dare to say otherwise. The end. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. We do have a few minutes still. If anyone have any question for any of the four speakers of today, we can open that time now. Just one chance. Yeah, sure.
Who feels comfortable to answer